Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's CITI program webinar. Today's topic is blockchain and higher education, and it is presented by Kerri, Lemoie. This webinar will be recorded, and the recording will be available on the CITI program's website. This webinar is also for educational purposes only. It is not designed to provide legal advice or legal guidance. You should consult your organization's attorneys if you have questions or concerns about the relevant laws and regulations that may be discussed in this webinar. In addition, the views expressed in the webinar are solely those of the presenter. Now let me tell you about today's presenter. Kerri Lemoie is the Director of Digital Credentials Research and Innovation at Concentric. She's an expert in web technology, including decentralized technologies and standards such as verifiable credentials and decentralized identifiers. As a PhD candidate at Fielding Graduate University, her research is focused on blockchain-backed self-sovereign identity. And now I'm going to pass the mic to you, Kerri.
Thanks, Jamie. Before we get started, I just want to read this conflicts of interest disclosure and let you all know that I have no relevant personal, professional, financial relationships with respect to this educational activity. So welcome, everybody. So today in this webinar, we are going to try to meet these learning objectives. We are going to review the history of blockchain, who started it, why, and the basics of how it works. I'm going to explain the characteristics of blockchain, why they're useful beyond cryptocurrencies. Then I'll discuss how blockchain is being used in higher education, which is one of the use cases where blockchains can be used beyond cryptocurrency. And I'll review some of the initiatives that are fostering the use of blockchain in higher ed. This slide just shows the sections of the webinar related to those learning objectives. Let's get started with an overview of blockchains. So why did blockchains begin? In 2009, Bitcoin, the first cryptocurrency, was introduced in a white paper that explained an electronic peer-to-peer payment system that didn't require banks. The digital payment system was based on cryptographic proof instead of personal trust. It allowed any two parties to transact directly with each other without the need for a trusted third party. Now, Bitcoin needed some way to store the transactions, so along with Bitcoin launched the first blockchain, which in many ways works like an accounting ledger that stores every transaction that was ever made using Bitcoins. And then since then, thousands of cryptocurrencies have launched, and there are even more blockchains than that. I'm going to explain some of the aspects of blockchains, and then I'll walk you through an example of a transaction. So one of the reasons for cryptocurrency was that online payments are too slow. So think about when you use a credit card to pay for something online. And it may look like to you that the payment happens instantly, but often it can take days for a payment to go through. There are institutional intermediaries. The payments go through a processor, and then to a bank, and then to another processor, and then another bank. Each of those entities has a record in their system of what we spent, who we sent it to, how we paid, and when. The data can be correlated to paint pictures of us and glean information about our lives. Also, the data can be sold. And also along the way, each entity that's involved charges a fee, and that leads to fees getting passed down to merchants or to us, the buyers. So let's take a look at a few initiatives in higher ed that are using blockchains. The first is the Dallas County Community College District. They are using a private blockchain application called Greenlight that sits in the center of a huge ecosystem of high schools, colleges, universities, employers, and other community organizations. Students have control over all of their records using Greenlight, and then they decide who can have access to what data on a case-by-case basis. And Greenlight is an example of software that is running a blockchain on Hyperledger and also using the standards that I just mentioned, especially including verifiable credentials and decentralized identifiers. All of this has helped students apply to college and to get scholarships, internships, and jobs. And everyone who is on this network can verify the student's data through this blockchain. To summarize what we went over in this webinar, blockchain and other decentralized technology can change how the internet works now. There are many uses beyond cryptocurrency that take advantage of the characteristics of blockchains. And some of the primary focuses in education are on identity and personal agency over data. And this slide provides the additional resources that I mentioned earlier in the webinar.
Thank you, Kerri. Now we have some time for a few questions from the audience. The first question, Kerri, what are the environmental impacts of blockchains?
People talk about this often, especially in terms of the Bitcoin blockchain, and that's because blockchains can be energy hogs, and it's actually one of the primary arguments against blockchains. For Bitcoin, for example, a single transaction could power over 31 U.S. households, and also they say that Bitcoin consumes about 33% of the world's energy. So it's an incredible amount of energy that can be used. However, not all blockchains use that much energy. And oftentimes when people talk about this, they are referring to the Bitcoin blockchain. So if folks are looking to get involved with blockchains and buying cryptocurrency or using it for their organizations, they should do some research and learn more about each specific blockchain before they begin.
We invite everyone to review our content offerings regularly as we continually are adding new courses and webinars in various areas of technology, higher ed, research, ethics, compliance, and professional development. You may be particularly interested in some of our newest higher ed offerings, including Undue Foreign Influence, False Claims Act, and GDPR for research and higher ed.